what do you got going on behind you? I
I
see
have
the
a lot going on behind me. Okay, so I set everything up. I don't know. Can you see anything?
I can see it all. Yeah.
So I have my Ed Parker book up there, which I'd love to tell you a little bit about Kempo and how it works in with my family.
Great.
My son got me that. Do you know what Pop Funkos are? Your
Yes.
kids?
My son, my older son
Yes.
has those.
Yes. So we collect them, my son, and then I collect a few. But he got me that Elvis Christmas one behind me, the Elvis Christmas album. And of course, I have Are You Lonesome Tonight? And I have little birthday cupcakes and a light for Elvis's birthday. Happy birthday, Elvis. Happy 90. I wish you were here. I wish you were here. And a little pink Cadillac. You probably can't see their ornaments. I have a lot of ornaments everywhere. And then over here, I have a lot of albums and little ornaments and things. So
I like it.
lots of stuff going on in here. It's beautiful when you walk in. And then I have my little my son got me this because it's the guitar with the little Kempo patch on it.
So let's talk about that. So
Okay.
your son, yeah, talk about your son and Kimbo and how that relates. Okay.
Look at
Yeah.
that. I made him laugh when he came home for Thanksgiving. I got his Kempo patch off his uniform and I taped it onto his guitar and left it in his room. And I was like, did you notice anything in your room? He's like, I did. Yes, I noticed my Kempo patch on the guitar for Elvis. So
So how long did he study? When did he start studying Kimbo?
he went in. Okay, so I have this little picture here. My little white belt there's such a glare. My
I
little
can see it.
white
I
belt
see great.
baby. This was first grade, I'd say, or second grade. And he started in another art. Did not like it, hated it. My mom always
Taekwondo, maybe.
maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty basic one. My mom begged me to put him in something because he was so bullied and he had so much anxiety to the point where he'd beg not to go to school. He would vomit. He'd pray and like be under a table. And my mommy heart would be just sick. Like I couldn't eat. I was crying. So by the time this boy was done, so he took it. So we found Kempo. And his director was so incredible and connected on so strongly. And when he first got there, he couldn't even go into class with other children. So we'd bring him in alone. It was so nice and do private classes. And he couldn't look out at the window where people were in the waiting room. So we turned him. By the end, he was his superstar. He was the only one who could do a full form 5, which I'm going to send you the video. Like most adult men, like level 8 black belts can't do it. And he was doing it and he was his superstar. So I have this to show you. This is when he got his black belt. This is all 8th degree black belt men bowing down to him.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. And of course,
he made it the hardest test ever because he said he was that good. So he brought in all of his like badass, people to be really hard on him. And they fought him too. I mean, I jumped up once because they kicked him in his throat and I saw the tears and he just kept going. And the instructor's wife said, sit down, mama, sit down. Just let it keep going and show how tough he is. So I did, but there was Elvis photos all over in the office. And he said, did you know Elvis did this art, Kempo? And I was like, no. So he was explaining it all to me and he knew him. He knows, the instructor knows Ed Parker very well. And he was always in California with getting all their stripes from Frank Trejo. I don't know if you know that name. He was a really good friend and took instruction under Ed Parker. So they were always going out doing things together. And we looked it up last night if Frank Trejo knew Elvis. And he said he came into his studio a few times with Ed. He'd walk in with a few of his guys and give him the hey, how you doing? And one time he was walking out, he's like, Trejo, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I thought so. I know who you are, because he was amazing. And so he's like, so now I always got to say, yes, I knew Elvis Presley when people asked me. But the cool story is my son just called me and said, Mom, I just have to tell you something. So he's getting straight A's in engineering in college. He's already got a job offer. He had it after his last summer internship. They gave him an offer before the beginning of this year, so no one else could steal him.
Right. Great.
Then he's got 2 other offers. Now he's interning somewhere, and the guy he's interning with was one of his idols that he went to meet in Philadelphia at a career fair, and they just clicked. And so now he's working for him, and they're friends. And this man and one of the professors are fighting over him, that they want him to work for them on their own private companies. So this boy has learned to communicate and make connections and is so driven. And like, when he's not studying so hard, he's never gone out on a weekend ever in college. Never gone drinking ever. When he's not studying so hard, he's designing. He does work for a health food company, like the supplements. He does all their CAD work and makes all the really cool designs, or he's 3D printing dinosaurs or something he saw in the museum. Like, so I said, what can they say you got out of Tempo? And he's like, I got self-determination and very strong dedication to things. He's like, it did totally change my life. And nobody picked on him after they found out he was a black belt. One kid did.
No, nobody smart would pick on somebody that's a black belt in anything. You know.
Oh, they were so cruel. And then, I mean, and I'm looking at him like, he's so cute. What, you're a little dork, and you're making fun of my son and hurting him and torturing him. So the last one who did it, he spun him around and did that arm behind the back that hurts so bad. The kid ran down the hall crying. Never again. Never again. So
thankfully, Elvis, studied with Ed Parker and elevated Ed Parker to a great status. Ed Parker was already super famous, when Elvis studied with him. But that's a nice little story about how your son, in a sense, was influenced in an indirect way through Elvis, because you're a huge Elvis fan, and
it's second grade. And it's just such a full circle. And I talk about Elvis to my son. I would say almost every day he comes up in a conversation. And it's just, he's such a huge part of me. I talk about Elvis every day.
So let's talk about that, okay?
Yeah.
When did you first fall in love with Elvis, his music or movies? Like, what was first in your life?
So I would say, well, first thing, let me thank you first for your channel and all it's done for me. I'm a chronic pain sufferer for the last 10 years. So I also relate very much to Elvis in that. I don't go out. I can't really leave. I can't do anything. I hardly ever have strength to even get off the couch and do anything. And I used to be a recruiter and travel to colleges all over and be just, but chronic pain, when it takes you over, it destroys you and it exhausts you. So that's another thing I want to get into later, is what Elvis did in those still under those circumstances of that severe chronic pain. And I have a very strong, like, painful connection with him on that. But being home all the time, I stumbled across your channel and watching Elvis fun videos like that I love to watch. And I just fell in love with it. And you're just so real and so passionate. And your love for Elvis reminds me of my love for Elvis. And I was a poor child who had like 2 Elvis things that meant the world to me. And so so you bring joy into my life by watching you and by all the books you introduce that I buy, as you can see, and read.
Yes, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just so much you've taught me, and it's really fun. And I so love how you're bringing this story to the forefront, but again, we'll get into that later too.
Right.
But, so I always think, like, people always remember where they were when someone famous passed away. And then you always remember where you were, like when you found out about them or when you fell in love with them. But for me, it was the same time. So I remember it was the summer of my second and third grade. My whole family was piled in my aunt's little VW Jeep or Beetle. And we're driving, and all of a sudden the announcements start on the radio. Elvis Presley has died. Elvis Presley has died. And I didn't know what they were talking about, but I was young and it was so traumatic to everyone in the car, and it was nonstop. And then it would go to a song and then it would come back. And I was like, why is this happening? Who is it? Why did they keep doing that? And it was like flustering me, almost getting me nervous. Like, so when we got home, of course, we turned the TV on and I saw him, and it was just instant connection, instant love. I started begging my mom every school night. So that was the summer of second and third grade, and we were moving from New Jersey to Indiana. So when I got to Indiana, like all my other friends were listening to other things, I was listening to Elvis in my room. I had 145, and it was in the ghetto.
Okay.
I listened to it over and over and over on my little bitty portable, and my brother got me a tiny little handbook from the grocery store, and I read it over and over and over. And then I begged my mom every school night, please let me stay up and watch the movies, please. So she would only let me stay up for Elvis movie night. And we just had one little black and white TV in my brother's room, little. And I'd sit in there by myself and I'd watch those movies. And
oh, yeah, I have a 13-inch black and white TV as well when I was a teen. And that's what I watched stuff on as well. And we had a gravity ear antennas, so I picked up all the local stations, and that's about it, about 4 or 5 of them. And of course, Elvis week, when Elvis's birthday or the anniversary of his death, that's the only time I ever got to see Elvis movies as a kid, because they played them on TV.
Yep.
So what was your first Elvis movie that you remember watching?
Oh my God. I was so young that I don't remember specific names, but I know a lot of them were the beach movies.
Okay.
A lot of the beach movies.
Blue Hawaii, Paradise Hawaiian Style.
And I loved them all because I'd never seen the ocean or anything. And I just seeing all that, and then seeing him and the singing and the dancing and the love story, and just all of it was just, he was so beautiful and just bigger, larger than life to me.
I think there's 63,000 subscribers that agree with you.
I think so.
Okay, so the first time you were introduced was, unfortunately, he was gone. And you got to hear his music, and then the movies, the beach movies you watched. But as you grew up, was it one of those things where there was never a break for you from Elvis, where you had other artists that you listened to more? There'd be no shame in that if you started listening to Richard Marx or Guns N' Roses or whatever, or was it just constant Elvis for you?
Well, I did. Elvis was always there, but I did go through a little period where I went through a Rod Stewart obsession.
Rod Stewart, yeah, he's a great artist.
We did just see his last show in Las Vegas for my 55th birthday.
Okay,
and
great.
We took our son and we had a blast. We stayed at Caesars, and it was his last show. So that was really neat. And I kept looking over at the Hilton, the things, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe. And the whole time I was probably driving my husband and son nuts. I was singing Viva Las Vegas, non-stop, walking around. And I love that movie so much. His charisma and that dance, they did. He and Margaret, like their chemistry was so adorable. He was so adorable when she pushed him off the diving board. And it's just,
yeah, you could tell they authentically had a lot of fun doing that movie, and they had that connection, that spark. Yeah.
Yeah. His draw, I cannot imagine how many people he just drew in instantly. But I always wonder why, out of all the women he had, besides Lucy, nobody seemed to love him deeply, deeply. Like, I don't think you've read Ginger or Linda's books, from what I hear from you.
I haven't. Okay. Not yet, no.
Okay. So Linda did, I really believe, love him for a while. But then you start hearing about like her going out on dates with him and the other girls and stuff and just buying the furs and all this. And I was like, mm-mm,
Hmm.
you're not truly in love with this man. If you can see him with another woman, but you're still taking the gifts. And, I think she was just at that point living. And then Ginger's book, you would think it was the most beautiful, perfect fairy tale ever. He was driving his motorcycle to her house in the middle of the night, and he was coming in and playing the piano for her mom and singing, and he was paying off her mom's house while they were getting divorced. And then he had trees delivered to be planted and a swimming pool dug, and he was just all their life, like just so entwined in their family. And she was so fascinated and couldn't believe Elvis was in her life. But then you look at things. I was watching his last concert today where he met that little Indian girl, the little Native American girl.
Yes,
Was so
yes.
precious how he gave her the kiss and kept telling her she was beautiful. And I was just looking how bored Ginger was sitting there. She wasn't even looking at him. And, anytime they showed her, she was so bored. And I even saw a picture of her running out of the bathroom when he passed. And then I don't know whether to believe the stories of she was doing her makeup and everything before
Yeah,
people got there. And
it's tough to know because we can't go back and it's not like they had cell phone records and all the other stuff you can document. I know there's talk about did somebody call the National Enquirer, beforehand at all these different times. But yeah, I mean, what I know about Ginger as well. Once again, I haven't read the book, but I do know that reading Elvis and Kathy, you know, the Elvis complained about Ginger not wanting to come on the road sometimes, and
yes, exactly.
if you love somebody, you're with them 24/7, like Linda was.
Exactly.
Linda was with him
Yes, she
24/7 for
was.
that first
And
year.
Ginger was new. And I mean, it should have been the most exciting time of her life. She's new with Elvis Presley. Like,
Mhm.
wouldn't you want to be? I would just want to be next to his body at all times. Like, I cannot imagine. And then, even in Lisa's book, she says he was always running around saying, "Where is she?" And so
Mhm.
upset because she'd always just go home. And
Right.
she said, and I'd hear them fighting on the phone all the time. He did not make my dad, she did not make my dad happy. She made him sad. And I couldn't stand it. And then I listened to her book, and it's just this ooey gooey, like
Hmm.
he loved her so much. And it was just this most fairy tale-y kind of icky, fakey candy thing that is beautiful to listen to. But now that I know it's fake, it annoys me. Like, I don't understand how these women didn't cherish, love, give him that love he needed. So desperate. He was so desperate for love. I read his nurse's book. Did you read that?
Marion Cock, that one,
Tish,
Marion's
Nurse
or
Tish.
Tish. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tish Henley. I haven't, and I'm going to eventually read some of these.
It's very
Um,
short. It's mostly photos and just like a little paragraph on each page. But she mentioned that on weekends, like on Saturday night, she said he'd be alone and he'd be crying, laying across his bed and saying, "Why can't I find someone to truly love me? Why do I feel so lonely?" And she would take him out for drives in the middle of the night because she didn't know what else to do
hmm.
to try to help his pain and keep him company. And it just seems so wrong. Someone with such a beautiful soul and heart. Like, I feel so much love for him. Like, I would have been there in every second. I'm sure many women on this channel say that. And it's not just because he was the most beautiful man that ever existed and looked like a Greek god. Even it's just his soul when you watch him sing, the sadness, the desperation, the eyes that are those bedroom like tilty eyes that sparkle, but they're sad. And
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that probably did make it difficult in some ways to have a relationship with him because he was so complex. And I think that
he was.
out of all the people that we know of that are like Linda Thompson, I mean she's the one that spent a big amount of time with him back when he was the sickest. Let's look at it that way. Anita Wood had Elvis when Elvis was healthy and young.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was with her right after the divorce for 2 years before Linda. Is that true?
No, Anita Wood was back in.
Oh, she was younger. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the phone call that got recorded.
Yeah, and I put that on my channel a while ago, and
that was an annoying phone call. My husband was going, "Oh my God, she's driving me crazy."
Yeah, I would want to break up with her. Yeah, but I mean, she was trying to. The thing is, she knew that Priscilla was somebody that Elvis had been talking to or been with, and I get it. I'm always an Elvis defender, but I'm never an Elvis excuser either. We all have relationships, and for Elvis Presley, he needed to be somebody like, let's say Lucy. He needed to be with somebody like Lucy, who was with, or even June Wanico, in a sense, who knew him before he was famous. Because the thing is, there's always that seed in your doubt. Are they with me for my money, for my fame, or for myself? And I think that, I think Elvis always questioned that,
Now, who's the one he was with? I'm sorry, I can't think of her name, for the 2 years after the divorce before Linda.
No, it was, well, I mean, Joyce Bova, off and on, he was with her, the girl from Washington, D.C.
The dark hair?
The dark hair, yeah.
Yeah,
the dark
okay.
hair.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of people that he dated for a little bit of a period of time here and there, but really, I mean, it was Linda Thompson almost right after, right almost as soon as Elvis and Priscilla had separated.
Yeah, so I was shocked to hear about her the other day. I saw it on someone else's Elvis person short put it up, and he said, "Well, having her by your side doesn't hurt any." So I was like, "Wait a minute, who's that?"
Joyce Bova, I think is what.
I never saw that. Okay.
Yeah, and this is the while we're doing the Are You Lonesome Tonight series, she and Elvis saw each other on the 21st of December. After Elvis met Nixon, he was with Joyce Bova. So
really,
yeah. So the thing, yeah, and she is one of a twin. I think she's still living too. So I'm sure
he was with Lucy the night before.
So the timeline of this is he saw Lucy on the 19th of December, and then he asked Lucy to stay, I think, in the book, and Lucy couldn't. Yes. She had some business to do. So he flew back to L.A. to see Jerry, and then they came back. Doctor. Yes, and then came back on the 21st, and then they saw Joyce on the 21st after Nixon.
Okay, and that's one of the things I wanted to say about Elvis and Lucy. So I got to put my glasses on for 1 second. Sorry. I made a bunch of notes, but so in one of my ways that I think your sayers of nay cannot say anything is in Lucy's book. Let's see. There's 3 books that all mention the exact same thing. One is Jerry Schilling. One is oh shoot.
And are we talking about the jacket?
No. We're talking about when he told her that he was shocked that she was leaving. He said, "You're leaving?" And she said, "Yes, I have to go home," which upset him. He said, "Well, then I'm going to leave too. And I don't feel well. I need to go see a doctor."
Oh, his hands or something.
He said his hands were splotchy and stuff and swollen. She noticed they were blue. And so if I don't find this, I'm going to be so annoyed with myself. Okay, here it is. Because I totally believe Lucy, and I'm so thankful Elvis did know true love. It's undeniable that in her book, written in 1987, right? Okay. Long before others, Jerry Schilling's 2006 book, Billy Stanley's 2002 book, and I also read The Seeker have you heard Seeker King? Have you heard of that one?
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
I do a lot of the ebooks that I love to listen to at night. So The Seeker King by Gary Tillery all say the same story, that Elvis was furious at home because Vernon and Priscilla were going nuts over his spending.
Mm-hmm.
and really, really giving it to him. And he said, I've had enough. He was yelling back. He walked out. He went alone for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. He got that flight. He went to DC. He obviously we know he stayed in the Washington Hotel with Lucy's book. He obviously called Lucy and said, hey, I'm somewhere alone finally, and brought her in. But she wouldn't have known that he was in the Washington Hotel, which that man at the White House also confirmed, who told the story. She wouldn't have known that he had to fly home to a doctor, which Jerry Schilling says, Elvis called me and said, I need you to pick me up. Have you read Jerry Schilling's book?
Yeah, bits and pieces of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he says, I've never had to work with Elvis by myself. So I was so scared. And he said, I need you to arrange a doctor, and I need you to get me picked up. So he had that English gentleman who drove the limo for him all
Mm-hmm.
over in
Yep.
California. So Jerry arranged that. And it's also in The Seeker King about the fighting with Vernon and Priscilla and him leaving by himself. So there is no way Lucy could have pieced all that together in her book.
Now I have it. Now it's funny that you bring that up because we're talking about the arguing. Did Elvis tell Lucy that he had a
Yes, he
fight with
told her
Priscilla
that.
in this book? Okay.
Yes.
So let me pull it up.
Sorry, I left that out. That's the exact story he told Lucy. They were really getting on my case about how much money I was spending. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out of there. And so it's exactly what the other 3 books said. And it's what Billy told you on his channel.
Mm-hmm.
Same story.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it for everybody
good.
because for the folks that maybe didn't remember it, just like when you read a book, you don't get all the details right away. I love your cut, by the way, there.
Thank you. It's the one Elvis thing I could find in Vegas that I left at the hotel.
So I'm going to actually read 3 pages. Okay, so December 1970. I told everyone at home that there was a business emergency that needed my attention, but didn't mention it was out of town. I only took a briefcase and my clothes on my back, a calf-length black skirt, a blue blouse, black French boots with leather laces, and a black cape. When we landed,
that sounded pretty sexy to grab to run out.
I know.
I was like,
well,
wow.
Once again, she's French. Like Derry says, she was a looker and she was a sexy woman. You know.
Good old Derry.
Yep. The hotel was a dull stone building, not Elvis's style, because he liked things bright, shiny, and new. So picking up the hotel phone, I asked for Mr. Burroughs, and he was in. This was a switch. For once, I was on the outside tapping on the door. He smiled and we hugged from opposite directions.
Oh, that melts me every time I hear about those knocks on the door.
Yep. And so, so he looked tired. His eyes were glassy. So it says, I can't take this anymore. I skipped a couple paragraphs. Even Daddy turned on me because I spent too much money on guns and stuff. I can't believe Daddy's siding with Priscilla and the Colonel, man. They're all using me.
Yep.
So that's the part in the book that, in case somebody else missed it, because I'm sure I read it and thought about that. But if there is no other documentation in books, now that's the if. There was a lot of books that were written from 81 until 85 to 86. Excuse me. Elvis and Gladys was written in 1985, which is good because this shows us that Elvis went to Meridian, Mississippi in his high school year in 1953.
Yep.
That he hitchhiked with 10 cents in his pocket away from home. That
broke my heart. It just broke my heart picturing him doing that with 10 cents. Oh,
hey, I mean, he was
everything breaks my heart about him.
I know. So that's good that you piece those things together because if there's no documentation,
3 other books, and she's telling that exact story from way back then in 1987, and these books all came out years later and told the exact same story of why he was there. Mm-hmm. He could not make that up.
Right. And once again, if there's, I always, me, I always say if, and Derry goes, Joe, quit saying if. You're giving the naysayers ammunition. The thing
You're
is,
saying I'm a fraud.
Right. By the way, you love Derry, don't you?
I do, and I want Derry to contact me about all the spiritual stuff. I love all that stuff.
All right. Well, I'll let him know. I'll let him know.
Or we could get on, like I said, the Brady Bunch. Me, you, Derry, your wife. I'd love it.
Yeah, there's probably a way to do something like that for sure. So okay, so Jerry Schilling's book was one of them. And so what else do you want to talk about? That was one of the points you made about Lucy knowing about the fight between Priscilla and Vernon and Elvis and leaving out
There
with
were
nothing.
so many things that you pointed out, but that's one thing. I'm extremely detailed. I think I mentioned to you in a text, but I don't know if you even read all my texts. So besides being an empath, I have a special memory where I don't forget any details, and it's this memory. So I read all about it where your mind constantly scans. So I freak people out. Like I'll be telling my son a story from so many years ago about me being out with someone, what I was wearing, what song was on, exactly this, that. And because I remember every detail of everything. So it's kind of weird. It's a curse and a blessing, mostly a curse. Because a lot of memories are painful. But I caught all three of those books. I was like, no. Besides all the other great things you proved and other people on the channel, those three things, it's just undeniable to me. Undeniable.
Yeah, and it's funny you were talking about the other people on the channel that send me stuff. Like Sandy Kirkendall sent me some more information again, just to research. And here's the thing about the
Great investigators.
Yes, they're great, and she's very great about genealogy and stuff. So one of the things that I was going to mention that got sent to me recently, I had it and I kind of forgot it myself. What was it? Oh yeah, so I was actually driving today to Nashville for a business meeting, and I was thinking, I wonder how far Monroe is from Memphis, because she talked about how the party that the governor James Noe, or ex-governor, his party was about 20 miles north or near the Tennessee line. And we were trying to figure out maybe where he went, what the political party was. And I know they had elections in 1954. You know how they have elections every 2 years for governor, for Senate. Yep. It had to be something like that. But I was thinking, okay, well, people are like, there's no way Elvis would have went 7 hours down to Louisiana. And I'm thinking, I know it's not 7 hours. I mean, at least I don't think so. But it's about 360 miles to Monroe. So yeah, that's about 6 hours at 60 miles an hour. No, actually less than, sorry. 360 miles at 70 miles an hour is about, what is that? Is that 9 hours? Yeah, it's about 9 hours. But Elvis, if he hitchhiked 250 miles, he could have taken a bus down there. He could have hitchhiked down there. Yep. And in 1953, if he was pursuing his music career, going to Meridian, Mississippi, while he was still in high school, then I can't imagine why he wouldn't go down there to Louisiana in October or September and try to audition for the Louisiana Hayride or the Wichita Jamboree.
Yes.
So I'm just always looking for, well, how far is it? And I was really trying to figure out where this property was, but it may be nearly impossible unless there's some sort of
that would be a fun Rare Elvis photo subscriber bus trip for all of us.
Oh gosh,
you should all get together somewhere.
that sounds like getting on a bus and going to a casino. I remember when I was younger in Nashville, they have these trips down to Tunica, Mississippi on a bus, or up to Indiana. It was like 4 hours on a bus, and everybody's happy, celebrating, going to the casino, and then when they're on the way back, everybody's all tired and broke.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It'd be fun to go somewhere like that.
It would.
So let's talk about more about the Elvis and Lucy book, because I know that's a passion of yours as well.
It is, and I mentioned to you today, it was very strange because I listened to you read it the first time in the segments. Then I bought the book. I read it. Then some of us like, oh, you aren't going to believe this. I made my husband read it. And he's so funny. He gets talking in a funny voice. He's like, oh my God. He's like, no, they needed each other. Why did she do that? Why didn't she go to him? And he was so mad. And I was defending her. I'm like, because she suffered through this and that. And she had children and she didn't want to ruin his career and this and that. But today, when you were reading the introduction, I think I either didn't hear the introduction when you read it the first time, or I didn't read it. I just jumped into the story with my book. Mm-hmm. So I was and you read so well. You're such a good storyteller. It's like being in school, and you pause because you take the moment to think, and then we take the moment to think. And as you were, and Derry did such a perfect job. That introduction, like, told the whole story. It was so beautifully written. But when you would read it and pause, I was getting angry. Because the way she was saying how people were like taking bites out of him, or however she was saying it, and hurting him, and that, you know, maybe she should have told him, and I started thinking, like, how did she not? And so my husband's like, you owe me an apology.
Right. I was saying this all along. And
I know. And he totally believes it too. I mean, we think it's the most beautifully tragic, amazing love story ever. Like, it's the most beautiful love story I've ever heard. I don't doubt one piece of it. And I just wish, after hearing you read that in the pauses, I'm thinking, okay, I understand she was damaged. She didn't want to hurt his career. He worked so hard for. But when she started seeing the people going at him like sharks, the so-called friends, the so-called manager, even his father, I didn't like the way his father treated him.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, you know, talking with Billy Stanley about Vernon. I mean, you know, he said Vernon was a good stepfather, but I've always not been very appreciative of Vernon because
I feel like he used Elvis too.
Well, here's the deal. He grew up. He was the source
Very
of the poorness.
poor.
You know, very poor, and he was scared of going back to poverty. And I'll tell you why he was probably right to be scared. In some ways, is because Elvis Presley spent money like he didn't need a dollar tomorrow. He spent it all today. You know, he gave it away, and I think that's very fearful to see money flying out, hundreds of thousands, $80,000.
They never got a professional accountant.
I know.
And Vernon, with no education, was the accountant. And
yeah.
There were no investments ever made.
Oh yeah, and of course we're talking the 1960s and 70s and 50s, because nowadays you would have an investment; it would be insisted upon. You know, but you know, I think Vernon did his best, but I think he was scared because he didn't believe that Elvis would last forever, and Elvis didn't last forever. Elvis died.
Do you believe the scene where when Elvis, and it's funny because that Burning Love song, it's funny, it's so sexy and like fun, but when he talks about burning up or with the fever, my mind automatically goes to when he had the fever and they dunked his face in the ice water, and I get so sad. And in the movie, Vernon was there and let them do that to his son and say, get him out on the stage.
Right.
Because, yeah. And my heart, like the way I love my child, and I don't know, he was suffering so badly. I mean, the man was dying in front of their eyes, and that was his son. And I just didn't like how he didn't take care of him. And Lucy saw this and she said, you know, there's sharks coming at him, and maybe I should have, and maybe people are going to be angry at me. And then I thought, you know what? That time where there were so many times in the book where she said, I feel like I should tell him. I'm like, yes, you have to tell him now. Yes. And she goes, but then I changed my mind. And I was like, okay, the time that she saw him and said, he came to the door and was just standing, hanging, and said, will you pray with me? And they was crying next to the bed, praying. And she thought, should I tell him now? God, yes.
Right now, yeah, and I think that was Beverly Hills in California.
Life.
Yeah.
Oh, the pure joy and love he would have felt, I think, would have saved his life for many more years. And although he had and destined to die young, we learned about all the inherited diseases he had that he couldn't help and why he needed all this medicine. But I think he would have lived longer. I think she would have gotten him to go to the Mayo Clinic. Like, she did try. I got to give her a lot of credit for that. She did.
And John O'Grady, you know, tried as well. I mean, nobody would do anything.
And John O'Grady did know that she said if she called the room to let her through when Elvis was so livid that she went to his first show.
Yes.
So that's another proof right there.
So I was looking up something here because I remember reading something. We're talking about Vernon letting Elvis have his face dunked. He's got to get out there. There was a time period in Elvis's career he was either 75 or 76, that he literally almost had no money because he'd sold his publishing in order to pay part of that Priscilla Presley settlement. So he didn't have any royalties coming in. He had money from the shows that he did, but once he stopped doing the shows, if he was spending $500,000 a month on upkeep for Graceland like he was, that's $6 million a year right there. Then buying jewelry, then flying the Lisa Marie out to Colorado to get a peanut butter sandwich for Lisa.
Remind me to tell you what he did, the money he spent on Ginger.
Yeah. So at that point in time, when they said get him out on the stage, it could have been a point in time when they literally had no money in the account, or it was a matter.
It was the last concert, though, wasn't it, of the series?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you may be correct. I could have sworn this.
I thought they said he has to just do this one, and then we can cancel the tour.
Well, I think they might have canceled the rest of the tour. Yeah, I think that they might have done that.
Yeah.
Because everybody was out there waiting in the seats. But yeah, the business part of it, I was talking to Michael Peterson earlier, the country music singer, and the business part of the music business is not fun. Elvis Presley had already put all the money out for this tour, paying the salaries, and regardless, it wasn't the first time Elvis Presley had, in a sense, either partially OD'd,
yes,
too much medicine, or was so sick that because he was so sick all the time,
the combination,
stage,
I think,
swollen, horrible.
Yes. He was heart failure. I read a nurse wrote edema because they didn't have the medicine for that at that time between diabetes and heart failure.
I mean, I think Elvis died of, in my opinion, I felt like he almost died of sepsis. He was so backed up. When you're backed up and your intestines are backed up, your body is poisoning itself from the waste not being able to leave your body. So it's saying today is Elvis's birthday, so we don't want to get too morbid about it. But Elvis,
we love you. We love you.
Yeah, and it's just so horrible that Elvis passed away at 42. I mean, I'm 49. It's crazy that I'm 7 years older than Elvis.
He was a baby.
Yeah. So we're talking about Elvis having gone states, being sick, and then you said, remind me to tell you what Ginger did with money or something. What was that?
Well, I think, and I believe he knew. Okay, so one thing though, in Destined to Die Young, when they talked about his heritage, so other books don't say this, but I mean, do you believe Destined to Die Young was correct?
Well, I've read part of it, and I certainly haven't read it online because I don't know if you know this or not, but Sally Hodel came after Lewis from defending Elvis Presley. And
was she the author?
She's the author, and so she came after Louis for whatever reason. So I haven't read it on my channel. I've read a lot of the medical reports, so I know that the traumatic brain injury that he had from falling and hitting his head was part of it.
Well, if she did correct, investigating into his background, she said that Gladys's grandparents were cousins from the same Native American tribe.
Yes.
So now he was missing a gene that you needed, and so was she, and so were so many of her siblings. One died at birth. One had mental faculty problems. Some died as children. Others died in their 40s. I don't know if Lisa had it. I don't know if she was tested.
Oh, no. She made it to 53 or 54, I think, at least maybe 55.
Yeah, and they both passed away at 42, Elvis and Gladys.
And actually, here's a misnomer there.
Right?
Elvis mentioned that his mother was 42 and she passed away, but on her gravestone, she's 46. And every other documentation that's out there is that she's 46. So it's very odd that Elvis. Because we're always talking about these age things. Everybody talking about the Are You Lonesome Tonight? Was Lucy 11? Was she 15? Right. Was she 14? Was Gladys 42 or was Gladys 46?
I was going to tell you, my mom in the census in 32, her name was just written by my grandma. My mom did not even know who her father was because my grandma was like all over the place. So my mom didn't know her real dad. And I was going to tell you, when you were talking about the census back in the 30s, I looked at what my grandma wrote on there and I thought, how dare you? Like, not have told my mom the truth about her father and stuff, and I got tracked down after I joined onto that, I got tracked down by some relatives who told me about her real father and what a wonderful man she was. And she could have had a wonderful life. It's again a tragic story, but instead was put in, home after home with Catholic nuns slamming her fingers and
Yeah, there were some mean Catholic nuns back in those days.
oh,
My
and the
dad.
priest that Lucy went to. Don't
Yeah,
get me
talk
going.
about that. Talk
I'm
about that.
Catholic too, but well, I was. But so anyway, so he she her liver was no good. They tried to blame it on being a drunk and cirrhosis, that she drank so much when he went to the army, but you don't get cirrhosis that fast. I mean, maybe she drank more throughout her life too, but they said, I guess we have 11 systems. They said 9 out of 11 of his systems were diseased. And as a child, 5 out of his 11 systems were diseased. So he was born with a lot of it. He was born with not being able to go to the bathroom. He was born with the insomnia and the sleepwalking. I don't know what the other ones were.
Yeah, and I'll have to read it because the thing is, unless they have Elvis's DNA and they studied it, and they had Gladys's DNA and studying it, it's almost guessing that this is what usually happens when cousins, interact and intermarry and have children.
Well,
And
one of the books said he was missing, and I have the exact name of the gene, and I didn't write it down. You're supposed to have 2. He had 1, which means you're a carrier of this disease, and carriers get the same symptoms as the people who actually have the whole disease. So I just feel like this poor man was cursed. God made him so perfect on the outside, a great chiseled God, and then not so blessed on the inside. But
I tell you, it's a good lesson in some ways. Now, would Elvis have lived to be 60 or 70 or 80 if he didn't work 300? In a sense, when he was on the road when he was young, doing 3 or 4 shows a night, going all over the place, 30 minutes here, 45 minutes here, traveling in another city, you know, he was relatively healthy looking, right? All the
yeah,
way up until the 72, 73 when he got injections that were, what was it for? The injections that made his face swell. Um,
uh, well, he was getting cortisone.
Cortisone. There we go. And then
But
after that,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, go ahead. Good.
Book Dr. Feelgood.
Oh yeah, Dr. Feelgood. Okay.
He was treating Elvis and the Kennedys and Marilyn Monroe, and almost every star was loading up in his waiting room. And then his son had his own practice in California. Now, they also sent the medicine home with people so they wouldn't have to keep coming in. Now, those shots were evil. Those were amphetamines and all kinds of weird animal things. And they said Kennedy was running through the hotel naked and so out of his mind, they had to call a psychiatrist in to get him into the room. And I mean, there's a big conspiracy with the CIA, said other countries can't find out about this.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he was gone. Marilyn Monroe was gone. Now, but they said, Jackie O, they were said, and even this doctor got addicted to his own shots, that the amphetamine was so strong and got you so high that the crash the next day or 2 was so severe that you needed it again, or you couldn't take it. So I feel like Elvis might have fallen victim to this man's shots.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is Dr. Max Jacobson. So
yes,
that's the book. The Secret Service under President John F. Kennedy code named him Dr. Feelgood. So this is an actual doctor. I know that there's so many books that we kind of talk about that may or may not be accurate or true. Jerry has the what's the book that almost reads the same thing as the Are You Lonesome Tonight? The spiritual person. It says Elvis wrote the book. What is that book? That
I just got it.
Okay, and it's called, what is it called?
Beyond the Stars.
Beyond the Stars. So I mean, there's books like that which may or may not be. I mean, I'm open minded enough to look into that kind of stuff. But then you have like the Dr. Feelgood. So when you're talking about this doctor. I want to make sure everybody knows that this is a doctor that the FBI or the Secret Service gave a code name of Dr. Feelgood,
And
Dr.
they
Max
did
Jacobson.
confirm. They did confirm, right? The Kennedys were seeing Max
Well,
Jacobson.
what it says here is that he developed a unique energy formula. And you think about Elvis. Elvis needed energy. He was always trying to go do shows and stay up and all this other stuff. So he developed a unique energy formula that altered the past of some of the 20th century's most iconic figures, including President and Jackie
Disgusting
Kennedy.
stuff in it.
Yeah, I'm sure it had a bunch of stuff in it. And when you trust, like Elvis, who was it that said? Kathy Westmoreland said Elvis Presley trusted doctors. He trusted them because he thought if the doctors were around, his little brother would have been alive. Good medical care. And so his philosophy was if one pill is good, two pills is better. So when you trust doctors like that, if you ran into somebody that was supposedly treating JFK and Marilyn Monroe and other prominent figures, he's going to develop a trust for that person. And all it takes is taking something once or twice or three times to mess you up.
You're done. Yep.
And that could have been the turning point, perhaps, for Elvis's short life. It really might have, opened up a gene, something. Because they say that people, they get cancer sometimes. Well, I'm going off on a tangent, but I
love talking to you.
Well, my niece got leukemia at 5 or 6. Sweet girl, Lorianne. And she passed away at 13.
Oh, my God.
But what the doctors had told my brother and his wife was that she had a gene, like they both had genes, and that it was one of those things where it was always going to open up and never close for Lorianne. It was never going to, the gene was not going to close back. Now, I could be talking out my behind about this medically, but that's what was told to them. And in layman's terms, she was always going to get the cancer, and it was, even though she went in remission, it was never going to not come back.
Oh.
And she was, St. Jude's treated her for free for all those years. Sweet
I just started donating to I was watching your channel, and that commercial came on where that little girl yells, "Daddy!" Oh. And I was like, that's it. I hit the donate button. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing. For 8 years, it was all taken care of. But, with Elvis, I mean, something like this, some of these energy shots that had methamphetamines and steroids and stuff like that, it might have caused his body to react a certain way and a gene to turn on. And then all of a sudden, that's where his health issues really got bad, was right around that time.
They blamed it on Jackie O's Hodgkin's. I mean, they can't prove that, but they do.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that book, because I mean, the thing is, they interviewed George Clooney, Jerry Lewis, Yogi Berra, Sid Caesar, a lot of people they interviewed. So this is an authentic.
One of the major baseball players he was treating,
Yogi Berra,
who blamed him for hitting a bone, and but it was an excuse. He wasn't doing well. I
don't know, maybe, but yeah. So that's what you're talking about there, and so let's talk. So let's talk a little bit more about Yellowstone tonight before we change the subject.
Yeah.
What in the book? Obviously, you're frustrated by Lucy not telling Elvis. Was there anything in the book that you questioned, that you thought?
No.
Okay, so you are a yay-sayer, not a yay-sayer.
Totally.
Not a naysayer. So there's nothing at all. And you read this for the first time with me, or did you read it before?
With you. I never heard of it. Okay. And I couldn't believe it. And I was so touched, and I was crying, and I was aching, and I was just like, oh my gosh. So I couldn't believe I found it, that you could buy it. So I bought it right away and read it in one day, which gave me horrible chronic pain, but I didn't care. And my heart just ached. But I was like, that is the most beautiful story I've ever heard. And I just, so many things that I had heard you first piece together, and the other people, and then the things I started piecing together from the other books, I was like, there's no way she made all this up. And maybe in her diary, maybe some things like, I mean, none of us, like you say, can remember exactly, things on certain days, but you remember the main event. And
yeah, because nobody questions June Wanico, everything she's written in her book. Now, June is still alive. June is still alive. June dated Elvis back in 54, 55, 56, off and on. But, she wrote this book in 1997. But the people that attack the Are You Lonesome Tonight and say there's no way that Lucy would remember details, they don't attack all the perfect details that are in this book or in Kathy's book, all the conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't question that.
Now, hers are quite detailed.
They're all quite detailed. So I'm just saying
that you are attacking Elvis's memory and you're ruining his reputation, and they're angry and how dare they say he had this child? If this love was so pure and that Desiree was born out of that pure love, that would have made him, I just got chills all over. That would have made him just, and he knew on that last phone call, oh my God, I couldn't take it.
My two Desirees. Yeah, my two Desirees. Yeah.
I'll see my two Desirees, and he never did. And
yeah.
But, there, instead of seeing like that would have been a pure joy for him. And why wouldn't you be happy that somebody, if you love Elvis, you wanted someone to truly, truly love him, because nobody else did. And she did, whether he had money, didn't have money, famous, not famous. She'd rather he wasn't famous. Whether he gained weight, whether he looked perfect. She didn't care. Right. Or if he was going through rough times and would call her and complain, or she didn't care. She was just as excited to hear from him. And it was just a true love. And a child out of that, they should be so happy.
Here's the other thing, though.
Why would that destroy him? And I just wish fans would not have turned on him because she came forward and said, we have this child, we're getting married. Life would have gone on for Elvis. He was Elvis. Okay, you're married to this woman you really love and you have this beautiful child together. Okay, great. Where's the next concert? Right?
And plus, in 1976 and 77, plenty of other scandals had happened. Past the Jerry Lee Lewis back in 1950, 57, 58, when that happened.
Kennedys.
Yeah, I know. That I don't think it would have affected him either. But I do. I mean, I put myself in Elvis's shoes. Okay, this is a woman that he tried to get to come to Graceland, to meet Gladys, to get married, to come with him on the road, to go with him to Hollywood.
He proposed too many times, you said today, right?
Huh?
You said today he had proposed several times.
Well, yeah, they had gotten married on the hill in a sense, in a symbolic marriage. But he constantly asked her to come with me, and that's very much like Elvis. Elvis did it in the sense. All these other people said that come with me on the road, come here. So she always said no and that's the maddening thing that makes Derry mad. And it also, I can understand why people get mad about it, but she had other children that were not Elvis's responsibility, first off.
But he would have so happily taken them on.
Well, he would have, I think, prior to becoming famous. But Colonel Parker really did control everything when it came to Elvis's career, and he put fear all over Elvis. If you are even considered serious with a girl, you lose your fans. You'll go back to being poor. And the same message was probably told to Vernon. Make sure your boy doesn't get somebody pregnant, make sure this and that.
Vernon seemed to love her.
Well, that too, and I wish Vernon was around. Vernon passed away in 79, and that's what the naysayers say. They say, well, they could say whatever they want because Vernon had passed away. So I mean, I understand some of the.
And the gatekeeper, the uncle, met her.
Yeah, Vester. Yeah, he took a picture with her, but people say he took pictures with everybody.
He said he remembered her in the car.
And that's the thing. People don't want to believe Derry. They don't want to believe that Derry had a conversation with Vester, but they don't want to believe that Gene Smith, Billy's brother, I think, Billy Smith's brother. I think that's who Gene Smith. Yeah, is that he remembered a Lucy, from back in the day, because Gene and Elvis were way closer than Billy and Elvis, because Billy Smith was younger.
Is he the one he made the pact with?
No, yeah, Billy's the one that Elvis made a pact with later on in life. The one that a lot of our subscribers went over to the channel and said, "Hey, why don't you give some DNA so Desiree can find out?"
I know.
There was that big snafu where they posted a video, Desiree Who and all that stuff. And, it's
So
gone now.
ridiculous. And now you're being charged with elder abuse.
And it's funny. I talked to one of their friends, Stephen McCarthy.
Why? Put a Q-tip in your mouth?
Yeah, I don't know. It's all right. But I did talk to one of their friends, Stephen McCarty, and he said, "Hey, I watched their videos. I didn't see anything at all that was baiting your subscribers or anything bad about it." He said, "I'll talk to them and let them know that I don't think you meant anything towards them." So, and I think they have the message, but they still haven't done a video. They haven't done a video yet. They haven't done one. They haven't put it out another Facebook post since the one that was like, "We're shutting our page down for a while because of this guy." So they've left it up, which is unfortunate, and I think it's the granddaughter doing that. The granddaughter runs the page. I don't think I don't have a problem.
She's a doozy.
I don't know him, and I don't know him well enough, and I've left it alone. I haven't made another video, and I'm not going.
I'm gonna get attacked like crazy. Oh my god!
You should have your own YouTube channel. You should create one.
I wanted to, and I wanted it to be all fun Elvis contests and games. Will you do it with me?
Well, why don't you do it, and I'll come on there every once in a while.
It's so much work. I don't know how to do it by myself.
Well, I think it's easier. It's easier than most people think. If the person that's the unhinged person that's making all the tarot card videos of Cowboy Joe, and saying that me and Derry Matera are lovers. Whatever. I know. And I'll tell you what, I don't watch a single second of her unless my wife plays it.
But you're a womanizer too. Don't forget. How are you both?
Yeah. And for everybody that needs context, there is a YouTube channel that's out there that she's very unhinged. She calls me narcissistic. But then she called herself narcissistic today. So she says one thing or it's the opposite. It's all the time. It's like she can't stay on one. And you know what? I find her entertaining when I saw a little bit of her, but she's dangerous in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like you said.
I agree. Totally. I feel the same way. I think she's very good about the narcissism. And then, but the one thing I don't understand is why doesn't she show when she's shuffling and pulls a card? How is it? Oh, look what came up. Well, we aren't seeing your hands or your desk. Are you just picking up the one you want to talk about? That's what I keep thinking.
And she makes her own tarot card.
Yeah, I like your little cowboy. He's very cute.
Well, you know what? And I have to thank her. She made me look nice. Thank you. Thank you for making
You're like a cute little Pop Funko.
Yeah. But as for her, insulting my wife and Prissy, my wife, she said that we're going to get divorced. She was going to lose her job. Stuff like that. And YouTube should shut her down.
Her like a freaking broad. And I mean, I'm like, this is just horrible. From one woman to another woman you don't even know. It's so disrespectful. It's so she's degrading herself as someone you could trust or respect as a professional and making a joke out of mediums who I truly believe in and I've used wonderful ones to communicate with my mother. That is the only way I've gotten through the death of my mother. And it's things they could never have told me without knowing. And if you believe that you go to another place and that there's spirits, then you have to believe that there is some of that. And they're watching us, and they do leave pennies and they leave things all over. I mean, the things my husband and I have found, like out of nowhere, just are crazy, and the lights blinking all over all the time around our TV. We have a strand of lights. And every time my son calls, they start flashing. And he was my mom's baby doll. That's what she called him. I mean, just things you cannot deny. And that she told me she loves to play with lights. And she turned off her tree lights while she's talking to me and her music. She's like, oh, she's messing with all my stuff. But she's making a joke and mockery out of those people. Oh God, she's gonna kill me. I'm gonna have a doll with pins in me. I didn't mean to say all this. Oh God. That's all right. So 3 favorite Elvis songs. What are your 3 favorite songs that come to your mind like that? Okay. 3 favorite. The most entertaining of all time is Suspicious Minds. Okay. When I watched the Las Vegas concert and I watched him do Suspicious Minds, I laugh so hard because he gets so into it, and his which my son calls machine gunning when he's doing. It's so awesome. He's
My wife loved that part as well.
oh, how could she not, right? He
Yeah,
is
she
so
kept the next day. She kept trying to do it. You know, I'm like, we both look like we're having a seizure, but Elvis made it look cool.
you don't have the Elvis. Nobody has the Elvis.
No.
Which again, another thing, nobody can do a song like Elvis. I was told by somebody, nothing can be better than an original because it's the original. I don't believe that. Elvis made every original better with his charisma, his octaves, his passion, his pain, his funniness, his sexiness. Like nobody, I didn't care. I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anyone. I know everyone loved the Beatles. I just never cared for them. I never listened to one song, but he'll sing their songs. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Like something the way she moves. What a great song.
yes. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that song. Yeah, and like them just standing there, like doing this their head, like that wouldn't have done anything for me. And they didn't have the,
Yeah.
I mean, just the pure.
So that's one song. What else? What's number 2 and number 3 for your favorite songs?
All right. Fever. I love Fever during the Hawaii show. I do it all the time for my husband. I'll do the shoulder thing and I love when Elvis always says, I feel like an old stripper up here, man. So but we had a contest at Christmas. Everybody had to pick an Elvis song and imitate it and do it with him. So I chose Fever. My son, Sweet Caroline's another one of my favorite.
Okay, that's a great one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and my son was on the male cheer squad in high school. They won nationals twice.
Nice.
Yeah, they went to Disney, but the whole bus, they always had Sweet Caroline going in the back. So he knew that song, but when he saw Elvis do it, he was like, and when he sees Suspicious Minds, and I think it's so important. I'm going on a tangent, but to pass this down. I feel like it's our responsibility. So I'm teaching him and his girlfriend every time they come. They're seniors in high school. Now they know, they knew who Elvis was. They're always on TikTok and everything. I mean, they even knew about the pastor who everybody thinks is Elvis. But, and I mean, I would too, honestly, if they didn't see him passed away.
Right.
I mean, I could fall for that, Bob Joyce, but I think it's our responsibility to pass it down to the next generation and keep it going. And that Elvis lives. Seeing all the young people, I made them watch that at Christmas, be so excited and just be like, oh my God, he is the man. I love him so much. And my parents talked about him and now I get it. And I love that. But I don't know how the band members played with him up there. I would have been sobbing. Like the emotions I would have gotten. They all did it fine. I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. It was cool.
All right. So that's your 3 favorite Elvis songs.
I mean, I have a ton, but
I know,
those just pop into my head as
3 favorite movies.
I mean, the movements during the Sweet Caroline and stuff are just oh God, I'm not good at the 3 favorite movies.
Favorite movie.
A favorite movie, I'm just gonna say Viva Las Vegas.
Okay, well then that's one of the most common ones that's your favorite movie because Anne Margaret's in there.
And he seemed so happy, and I think he really enjoyed making it.
Now, did you think that he was in love with Anne Margaret?
I think he was in lust with Anne Margaret.
Okay, that's a fair point.
He got over her very quickly when she didn't want to give up her job, and he moved on. And he didn't always go back to her his whole life like he did to Lucy.
Well, here's an interesting point. Derry talked about this.
Although he did call her, I know.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's the thing is that, and of course she was married to Roger. That she got married a week after Elvis and Priscilla got married. So she didn't get married first. Elvis got married, then she got married. So that's one of the reasons why. It wouldn't have worked, though. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked because she was career oriented and she wasn't going to give up her career. And Elvis was career oriented and he didn't want somebody that, he wanted a home wife. Yeah, because he was so busy working all the time that he wanted to know that they were going to have the time together when he was home. Yeah. Which, I mean, a lot of the newer generation and even some of the older generation, they don't really like that aspect of it. That you couldn't have a job, you couldn't And then there's some ladies that are happy that they're home and that they want to be a homemaker. And,
Mhm.
so I understand the argumentative stance that some people take about how that was chauvinistic. You need to
But
be
he
home.
wanted them to travel with him, which would have been awesome. I mean, if
Yeah.
their love was true, like theirs were, I believe he would have been faithful.
And you're talking about theirs as in Lucy
Lucy.
and Elvis. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I believe she would have traveled with him because I don't think she would have wanted to be away from him for a minute if they did come out with this and they were together
But
and they got married. I think
what
she and all the children would have been with him everywhere.
but what I believe about this book is that they had a doomed love. It was a doomed love because she had already had a couple children. She had been married young, whether it was 11 years old, 12 or 13. I don't,
Yeah.
that's conjecture in my opinion.
Yeah.
But she had children already. It was kind of doomed at that point. She didn't tell Elvis right away. They'd spent some time together and stuff, and then she confessed that she was married. Elvis still wanted, to see her and talk to her, but she kept running away. She ran away from 57 or whatever that was, or 58, all the way to 67.
You
And
found her.
yeah, it's like 8 or 9 years there. So I always wonder. I mean, it seemed like Elvis was excited by saying my two Desirees, but
Yes.
I mean, he would have had to know. But I would have been a little upset myself. 18 years not being told about a daughter.
Yes.
It would have
Yes.
made me a bit upset. So I always wonder
That
too.
wasn't fair. It wasn't.
But at the same time, it was fair. It's one of those impossible decisions. When do you tell
Impossible
somebody
dream.
if you hold it for
Not
10
one of his
years?
songs, Impossible Dream.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but she did tell
When
him
is
she
the
had
right moment?
children with that man, and he didn't care. He didn't stop seeing her.
Say
He
that one more time.
he did. She did tell him at one point that she did have children.
Yeah, yeah. That she did have children. He didn't
He
stop
didn't
seeing her or
care.
calling. Yeah. So, and the thing is, well, I think this whole hang up or the potential hang up of Elvis not wanting to be with a mother is made up by Priscilla. That's what I think.
I have to tell you something.
Hmm.
Okay. So there's a controversial book out there. I've mentioned it to you. You haven't read it. Derry's mentioned it, so I know he's read it. But in it, Elvis has a spiritual confidant, which I can see him having because he was very into that. And he writes to her. And there's some really interesting stories in there. He was a very sad man. There's some horrible stories in there. But one story about Priscilla. So I think Priscilla made that up so she could cheat on him because in one story, she got pregnant again and she miscarried. She was on the floor. He described the whole thing. Then there was another story where they got into a huge fight in California. And at that point, they were in between two houses. And she made him so angry that he left and he was taking off for the other house. Well, he didn't realize she had run out and he bumped her by accident and he freaked out, screaming, "I'm sorry," getting out, taking care of her. But she was okay.
Mhm.
But they went to the hospital just to make sure. And the doctor said to him, she lost the baby. And he was like, oh, and he's like, we had not been together at that point for her to be pregnant. So,
Yeah, and then what's the name of that book you're talking about?
Letters from Elvis.
Letters from Elvis. Okay. All right. So that way, if any subscribers want to go take a look at it, I mean,
It is incredible. And just to follow up, there's a book called, it's not Letters from Brando, but it's something from Brando.
it's something very similar. And somebody
It's
else sent me some stuff from that as
to
well.
the same woman. Also, Tom Jones used her and Marlon Brando used her. They were very tight, those three.
But did Tom Jones say publicly that he used her? That's the thing that I don't. How I'm open minded, but I'm also skeptical. Just like I was
This
reading
is the
that.
thing. Marlon Brando said Elvis isn't here to confirm this, so I am, and I'm confirming it. And he didn't fight that book, like you always say. This person didn't fight this book. he didn't fight this book at all. And there was a lot of stuff about him in there too. Things that happened to he and Elvis that was horrible together. And he didn't fight it.
Yeah, and I think that's good for everybody to look into it. And you know, our
subscribership
is great. Huh?
You have to buy them together because then, and she was like Derry, the first half of her book was all investigating and confirming and just and the way she got these letters was so incredible.
Yeah, was that Brando on Elvis's own words? Is that the book?
Yeah.
By Gary Lindbergh?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think you would gobble those up in a day. They're fascinating.
I'll have to take a look at them. I'm so buried under all the books that I still haven't finished yet. I got to get through all those, and then I'll take a look at them
one day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny tackling the Are You Lonesome Tonight and reading for an hour and a half straight. It's exhausting. It's fine. It's one thing to read it like with your eyes, but then to speak, it really drains you. And I noticed that as I'm reading some of these longer,
I would probably get very tongue tied.
Yeah, when I get tired, I get tongue tied, and I also yawn a lot. I've got to stop it and rewind it because I'm not taking a break. Like we're talking, I'm taking a break, and you're talking, and I'm talking. But when I'm reading, even when I try to pause, I don't take a break, and I lose my oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say one of my very, very favorite songs.
What is it?
Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Yes.
So I feel the empath thing. I feel something very strongly when he sings that. Welcome to My World too. But Bridge Over Troubled Water is the most. And I sit like this. And tears pouring down my face. And because I try to hide it from my son and my husband, but they know every time. And I was like, there's so much pain in him. And he would lay himself down for someone as sick as he is and as much pain as he's in and as exhausted and sad and depressed as he is. He would lay his body down and let someone walk over it as a bridge to get help. And I sobbed. And then I was sitting on the floor wrapping Christmas gifts when you were talking to Billy. And you said, what song does Elvis relate to the most? And he said, Bridge Over Troubled Water. He really felt that. And I went, what?
Yes.
I started weeping. And I started screaming for my husband in his office, like, Corey. I was like, come here. He's like, what? He's like, and I'm sobbing. And I'm like, you know how I always tell you I feel it when he sings that? His little brother, his little stepbrother just said that's the song he related to and he felt so strongly. I was like, I told you I'm an empath and feel these things. And I feel the sadness. And I even called my son. He's like, I go, Clay, what song do I cry to every time? He's like, Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I was like, yeah. I was like, and that's what his brother said. He felt the most emotion too. I can feel it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I mean, when you talked about Elvis doing other people's originals better than them.
Oh yeah.
And even Paul Simon said it.
Did he?
When Elvis, yeah. I love the song.
And your tribute songs. Oh my God, so gorgeous. And I wrote you today to ask you that one. What is it? Elvis looking at? What is it?
That's the Shadow of the King.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I picture him. I can, every time I listen to it, I see him up in his bedroom window, like with that little terrace, looking out over all those people, like at the gate. And he's all in white, but he doesn't have the pain anymore. And he can't believe that everyone still loves him because he always thought he was going to be forgotten. And that song hits my heart so hard. It's so beautiful.
I appreciate that. I mean,
you are an amazing songwriter.
Thank you. Well, it's one of those things. I mean, God gifted me with it, and I probably haven't done enough with it in my lifetime. There are times when I don't play the piano, like I haven't played the piano in, like 5-6 years.
Will you play something real fast?
Huh?
Can you play a few keys?
Maybe I play a little bit here. Let me see here. When you're with me. Feeling small. Can't play too much or YouTube's going to go, that's a copyright violation.
Oh, God.
When tears are in your eyes, I will comfort you. I mean, I love the piano, but
that's so beautiful. That's so
but songwriting wise, sometimes I'll tell my wife. Sometimes I forget that I can play guitar or write a song, and I hadn't really written hardly any songs until I started writing the Elvis tribute songs, because part of the reason was I was out of the industry. I wasn't trying to become a songwriter, get cuts anymore. We had stopped releasing songs like records, because it's expensive. It's very expensive. What
anymore?
We stopped cutting records, writing songs.
I thought you said you stopped cussing. I was like,
oh. So in a sense, yeah, we still cut. I don't hardly cuss. I think my wife cusses more than me. She's a.
I always say I have the mouth of a trucker. I got it from my mom.
There you go. She got it from her dad. So,
yeah.
But
still a very, very good person, as I'm sure your wife is.
Oh yeah, I mean, my wife's a wonderful, wonderful mother. She's a wonderful wife.
Yes.
And I couldn't, when I was talking to Michael Peterson today, he's been married for 12 years and been with his wife now for about 15 or 16. And he talks about how, like, if after 10 years of marriage, your wife is more beautiful, and he made a joke. It's your fault, basically, kind of a thing. And I have to go back and listen to it. But, I'm more in love with my wife than I was back when we met. And I knew I was going to marry her on our first date.
I love that story.
Called my mom, so I'm more in love with her now than I was then.
Yeah.
So what? She cusses every once in a while, like a trucker.
So what? Well, I've been married 25 years.
Huh?
I was married 25 years. So it's 25 years marriage, 55th birthday, and my son's 22nd birthday. So it was all celebrated at once in Vegas.
Congratulations.
And I have to say, my husband treats me like you described your wife. Like every day, like, you're so beautiful. Except when I look horrible. And I know I have big black circles under my eyes. And I've been so sick and not been able to get up and do anything. And he still loves me. And all my friends with chronic pain, their husbands have left them.
Well, I hope you find some sort of solution for the chronic pain. I know I think I sent you Allison, Allic.
You did.
Have you looked into that?
The only thing is I'm worried about my stomach because it burns a lot.
Yes, no. My wife has had acid reflux. She had the PTSD, and you can. I guess you just have to look into it. But it's a very powerful thing where it does take pain away, because the root of all pain is inflammation. That's the root of all pain. And it's a major anti-inflammatory. I found out about it when I got tennis elbow, and I couldn't even hold a coffee cup without dropping it on the floor.
Wow.
This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I was rebuilding a motor underneath a van, and I was wrenching it. I was torquing it and stuff. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't golf. I couldn't play tennis. Yeah. I was getting tennis elbow, tendonitis. And so that's the first time I started taking that. And within 3 days, and cortisone shots were not helping anymore.
I was getting tons of those.
Yeah, they were not helping anymore. And so within 3 days, all my tendonitis, all my inflammation gone.
I'm going to try it.
Playing go. Yeah, and looking to get it. It's $36 or something like that for 30 of them.
I take tons of supplements every day for my kids.
Yeah, so. But each of those is actually 36 cloves worth of garlic.
Oh my gosh!
But not the garlic part, only the allicin. And the allicin is anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. All four.
What burns my stomach? Do you think they'll burn me up?
I don't think it's gonna. I mean, once again, do you get a lot of acid reflux all the time?
Not all the time, but I do, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. Talk to your doctor.
I'll just wait.
Yeah. I got
you. But oh boy, what was something else we were going to talk about? Oh, you know what? One of your people wrote in. It was so funny. She said after Lucy mentioned the songs that Elvis wrote for her in honor of her, because he thought of her when he saw them.
Well, when he sang them, I got to correct, because you said wrote.
Oh,
But I mean,
did I?
could
Because I
have
know he
been
didn't write. I know
could have been my ear, but yeah,
I
that
think
he
I
sang
said
for it, yeah.
read them. I don't know. I meant to say read them.
No, yeah,
Because he'd
yeah.
he'd read other people's songs, and when it hit him and felt something, he would choose them to sing, right?
Mhm,
So
right, yep.
he would do the. I hear Lucy in a lot of songs that Pain for Lucy, and so many that he didn't even mention to her. But the ones he mentioned to her, I wrote down and went back and listened to. And then I also wrote down how she said she saw him not feeling well in Hawaii and something wrong. So then I went back and watched Hawaii. And one of your subscribers said the same thing. And I was like, if she doesn't know it, I don't know if she's watching or not, but she's an empath.
Hmm.
The fact that she did that and cared that much and went back and felt so much. Oh, and Snowbird. Oh God.
You know, it's funny. I've never been a
It's so
big
hard.
Snowbird fan.
What's that?
I've never liked that song very much. It's just
I
funny
wouldn't
that
have, except for I'd only heard of it because he said it was for her. So I pulled it up and I thought, oh my God, the little snowbirds flying away and they can never be together. And
which
yeah,
is interesting because to me it's not the typical Elvis song.
his voice is so pretty in it though.
Oh yeah, he sounds great doing it, but
Yeah.
but the fact that he sang it, I know it was an Anne Murray song first, I think Anne Murray. Yeah, so yeah, certainly Elvis. If since he was not a songwriter, he had to pick songs that he could feel.
Yeah.
And so it makes total sense. Songs like "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" There's all this discussion about, well, Colonel Parker told him to record it. Well, maybe Colonel Parker did tell him to record it, but maybe Elvis only recorded it because he felt the song was appropriate for his
Right.
feelings, and so nobody made Elvis do anything. Elvis still, in a sense, had to agree to do it. He toured as much as he toured because he wanted to, because he had to, wanted and had for his fans, and he had to for financial reasons too, in order to keep tithing and giving money away and taking care of his people.
Oh, like he had to take care of all those people that weren't there. They would have never done that for him.
But where do you draw the line? Just
Right.
think about this. If you're taking care of a group of people from 1958, let's just say 58, from the Army, like Red West and Sonny West, you're taking care of them for 15 years, and it's 1973. They were with you. They're the only people that have been with you the whole time that are around you. Where do you draw the line of getting rid of them when
Look
if you
what they
just go
did when he did though.
But he did only because of I think it was more his dad.
Yeah. He didn't tell them the whole deal and screw
Because he
Elvis.
fired, like Billy Stanley said, he fired people all the time. Everybody got fired, but he would bring them back.
It was a test to see how much they cared about him, probably.
Yes, probably part of it. Yeah. Um, like Billy said, he was the greatest actor
Right.
he went up to Lamar Fike and made Lamar Fike all just jumpy about what he said, and he told Billy, "Hey, I've got to keep them in line. If I don't, they're going to get complacent in a sense." So he knew that they were kind of employees too, but it has to be a head trip to have that much money to be that famous, and still not quite know if anybody besides Red West or Sonny West or any of those early guys cared about you for real, or his brother, Billy Stanley or Ricky or David. He kept Ricky and David around. That's something that Red West and Sonny West can't say. But people, and Billy Smith doesn't. He wants to. I know he doesn't like the Stanleys, and he's got some good reason to be upset at Dee, because Dee did go on national TV with Geraldo and accuse Elvis and Gladys. Yes,
Geraldo.
yeah, but it wasn't David's fault. It wasn't Ricky's fault. It wasn't Billy's fault. So, but the thing is, he did choose to keep Ricky and David with him, working with them and on the road. Um, and they were with him from 1960 as little boys. So he had the people bringing outsiders
in. Ed Parker.
Yeah, Ed Parker too. Yeah.
When he really got threatened and
but Ed Parker
carrying all the guns, and
Ed Parker didn't take any money. He wasn't on salary.
Oh, yeah.
So just like Lucy didn't want to take money, that's a true test of love when you're offering money and you're saying, "Don't give it to me. I don't want it."
His description of the funeral, how he couldn't even remember the beginning. He was so distraught and sobbing. Like, he truly loved him.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something also very bonding about the Kempo. Like they were just, it's like they were brothers, you know.
Yes.
I wrote down some other songs quickly too that I love. So I said Make the World Go Away, Just Can't Help Believing,
Oh yeah, great song.
Love, The Wonder of You. And I said, okay. And one that I did not say that I also get very emotional feelings with is Kentucky Rain.
Hmm.
This summer I was floating in the pool on the raft and I was listening to Elvis songs on my phone and Kentucky Rain came on and I was picturing him. I'm picturing Elvis Presley desperately seeking out this woman, walking through towns, like he asking people and soaked and uncomfortable and begging people in stores, have you seen her? And I didn't know anything about Lucy then, but I could feel that pain and that desperation. And I kept thinking, who could be lucky enough that Elvis was doing that for them? And I can feel the pain in his voice. And I don't know, all that stuff now. To me, I think he had to have been thinking, Lucy was so early in his life that so many of these songs are so beautiful and so painful. How was he not thinking about her? I feel like,
Well, here's the great psychological part of relationships and losing somebody and somebody, in a sense, running away from you. When that happens to you, you're always going to seek it.
Yeah.
The idea of a lost love. And of
Yeah.
course, in music, in popular culture, those are some of the biggest selling songs, biggest selling movies, biggest selling books.
Yeah.
Is a forbidden lost love. And their story played out just like that because this was an accidental meeting at a governor's party. And then she comes and sees him at the Eagle's Nest when he's singing acoustically just
So
because
meant
his
to
sister,
be.
you know? And then, I mean, once again, reading back through the book, I mean, we're going to read more details about it again, but it was sparingly. They saw each other a couple times here and there because Elvis started to become famous.
Right.
And even in June Monico's book, Elvis didn't call her for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Mr. Birthday, Missed Christmas, I think. And then Elvis had Dottie Harmony at Graceland. So June was upset. That's why June met him at the train station and said, I'm getting married to somebody else. Because, and Lucy had the same things. Like if Elvis tried to call, he would call from the road. He wouldn't always get Lucy. That's sort of a lifestyle that Elvis lived. You didn't have
So we
cell
sent
phones.
those roses.
Yeah, sent the roses, stuff like that. So, but people want to like question and poke holes in the story, but they only saw each other maybe 9 or 10 times in 23 years, 24 years, and so you have to take it in the context that Elvis desperately wanted this lost love from the 50s, 1953. He wanted it, to be, in a sense, his salvation because he loved comic books, and comic books, you're the hero.
Yes.
And so that's part of it too. He wanted to be her hero, you know? And it's funny that Desiree was with Julio Iglesias, whose son Enrique sang, I will be your hero, baby. I mean, just the craziness of it all that she ended up in the Julio Iglesias camp.
Isn't it? And that Priscilla dated the
Julio.
father. I mean, the craziness of this story, it's like they were entwined. Like they were just meant to be on this earth, all entwined. Like the strangeness of how they met. And then again, with the lawn cutting, and then you had to prove to everyone he did lawn cutting. And I mean, I saw him on a picture on a mower the other day, and it's just, they seem
he cut his
so
own
meant
grass.
to be. It's fate.
Yeah. Yeah, he cut his own grass at Graceland in 1957 when he was famous. He done Jailhouse Rock and he's cutting his own grass.
I know.
And
So
then Billy
cute.
Stanley talked about them going out and fixing a fence together. So
Yeah.
Elvis was not a coddled person that wouldn't do his own things. He probably very much enjoyed being a man and knowing how to do things.
And riding those horses.
Riding the horses, riding
Nobody was more
motorcycles.
beautiful on a horse than Elvis Presley.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked like he could ride.
Lisa up on the horse. Oh God, so sweet. There's another book. Being Elvis: A Lonely Life. Have you heard of that?
I have not heard of it. I don't think.
Okay. That's one, because I just kind of search the ebook sometimes, and if it's someone I think I haven't heard you say was horrible, mean person or something. So Ray Connolly, have you heard that name?
Yeah, that's kind of familiar to me, but
Right.
I know I haven't
Well,
read
he
it.
wrote it, so hopefully he's not a bad person. But so on track 34, as you're listening to the ebook, he talks about Elvis and the guys were always going down to Dallas all the time because there was a stewardess down there he had met. So I want to know, I'm wondering, so Billy, Jerry, do they remember always going down to Dallas? And did they meet this so-called stewardess, or was it Lucy?
What was that again?
Dallas.
What book?
Oh, Being Elvis, A Lonely Life by Ray Connolly.
All right. Just for folks that want to have some background on this here. Let's take a look here. All right. So this is by Ray Connolly. Let's see here. Elvis Presley is a giant figure. I just want to find out some background who the author is. It's published in 2016. So it's basically just a biography of him. So
he knows a lot about him in this book.
So this doesn't look like a junk book. That's once again, and I say this because there's going to be a certain side of the Elvis fans that don't want to read anything that might be a spiritual book, that might be a letter from beyond, stuff like that. There's a certain section that doesn't want to. So I'm saying this is down the middle. This is a biography from somebody, and that's bringing this up.
A lot.
Yeah, and so he more than likely what he would have done is he would have researched, he would have done interviews, he would have looked at other books like Jerry Hopkins, the biographies like that. So I heard something the other day, and I don't know whether or not I haven't looked it up, but somebody said, "Hey, did you know that when Elvis left D.C., he also went to Dallas?" I got to look up to that. I have to look up between.
Oh, he did. He did. He connected.
Are you connected in Dallas?
How could he connect through there and not see Lucy? He did connect through there. You're right.
Yeah, it's interesting because Lucy talked about wanting to buy a house in Dallas for him or in Florida. Remember that? And when I went and looked, and he was pursuing buying a
house, even though he's never been there.
Yes, in Florida. So Orlando, it would have been perfect because it was an amusement park, and Lisa would have loved going.
I know. Poor guy would have had to buy the whole park out at night, but
right.
I don't know. You know what else kills me? When he does American Trilogy.
Oh, you know what?
That
is a phenomenal song that's extremely hard to sing because of the very last 3 or 4 notes. It's a beautiful song. I used to sing it in talent shows sometimes. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Yes.
Such a patriot. You can feel his love for America. And then when he says Daddy's gotta die,
yeah.
The tears are just running out of each eye down, dripping off his face.
Because everybody says, I mean, at least, Kathy Westmoreland said Elvis knew he was going to die.
I know.
He said, "I'm dying, Kathy."
I know.
So when he sang songs like that in the 70s, in late 76 and 77, he sang it with the emotional knowledge inside that I am not going to be on this earth much longer.
I know. That's why they kill me. Did you know, am I wrong on this? Something I just read earlier today that I did not know that. All right, so so 2 of the songs that kill me because I feel like they're haunting. Like he was singing his story my way. I feel like was his exact story. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then also Unchained Melody. I mean, he was literally dying in his last tour, and he sang that so perfectly, like Pavarotti. I mean, it was just incredible. And I mean, he couldn't even get breaths right. He had emphysema and stuff, and he was using inhalers. You could see behind the doors, and the way he belted that, he gave his all. And I do think he knew that was his last concert, because when he said, "Are you lonesome tonight?" and he said, "I was, and I am."
Yeah.
Ginger was sitting in the audience.
Right, I know. See,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that was I think it was June 19th or June 20th, something like that of
yes.
1977.
Do you know though those two didn't come out until right after he passed away? So
What
can
the,
you imagine like Elvis had just passed away and then My Way comes on the radio?
oh, I know. I mean,
I
that's
can't
just
even imagine. And I watched the hearse go to My Way and I sobbed. And when I found out that both of those came out right after he died,
yeah.
it's like he was talking from it. I do believe with all that Native American blood in him, which it sounds like there was a lot, if that destined to die is correct, that he did know things and he was able to understand the weather and everything like the Native Americans can.
And I think she got, the author of Destined to Die Young got some of that information from this Elvis and Gladys book, the one that fell off the shelf that
Ah,
has the
yes,
radio
that was no mistake.
because it's talking about Gladys's roots. It talks about that she had both sides. She had the Smith side in her blood, and then she also had the maternal and the paternal sides were in her blood. Or so that's where I guess that's where they got the cousin thing from. But we just started reading this book, so I'm just kind of curious. Look at this. This was I got to show you this here. I'll go off screen for a second. Whoever bought this book, their name is C. Hoverman.
Okay.
So this is they had a $50 balance. This was a $2.50 book for him. April 19th. It's funny, it's just sitting in the book. So if C. Hoverman is still out there, you're a member of this book club that bought the Elvis
That's
and
so
Gladys,
cool.
and I've got your book. But here's some of the pictures real quick. So this is some of Elvis's relatives. Do you have this book, The Elvis and Gladys?
No, I have Destined to Die Young, but I don't have Elvis and Gladys.
Yeah, I don't really know yet how this book is going to turn out to be, but it was written in '85, which is 2 years.
Who's the lady on the top right?
She looks very Indian, but that's
yes,
sassy,
she does. That's why I'm asking.
Sassy and spirited Anne Mansell Smith, Elvis's great grandmother.
Okay.
So there's a picture going around that says "Mourning Dove" or whatever like that. Elvis's great grandmother, great grandmother. It's going around the internet. It's been going around for years.
Well, it's Love, and that's why Gladys's middle name is Love.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but we're reading. We'll figure it out. All right. Yeah. So closing statement. Okay, I'm going to give you a closing statement, just like Derry Matera has an.
I could talk to you forever.
But I have to sleep sometime.
I know. oh, 1 second. So do you know he dieted for Hawaii, right? The 500 calorie day thing. Mm-hmm. Do you know how he did that?
Well, I know he did jelly and water for a lot of his diets before going.
This one's really interesting. It's in Linda Thompson's book. She did everything with him. She went, when he'd go to the hospital, she'd go with him. Mm-hmm. He'd make her have her bed at his angle. If he'd move it, she had to move it. He said, I have to go to my doctor's house. He got into his pajamas and got in bed. And she was like, what's happening? That guy put him on an IV and put him under sedation for those 2 weeks, would bring him out to get his 500 calories and put him back under. She said she thought she was going to lose her mind sitting in that room. She just wrote poetry and stuff. So she stayed with him those whole 2 weeks. And he put his body through that. And he was also getting urine from a pregnant woman.
That's in Linda's book?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and so what I know about Linda is it seems to me like she's pretty honest about all this stuff. She's talked about Elvis.
She has a very sweet voice. She lulls me to sleep.
yeah, she's got a beautiful voice, and you could tell the baby talk that she would give Elvis, I'm sure, and they went back and forth. It would make everybody sick.
A lot about that.
Billy talked, it would make them sick to hear it. But once again, I mean, that's what
Elvis.
You
hear him say "Wawa" on stage and go, "Oh God, a grown-ass man saying "Wawa" for water," because he slipped.
That's funny. So yeah, I mean, what we know is that Elvis was in the hospital quite a bit, 73, 75. He also more than likely probably was trying to get off the dependency of some of the pills and some of the medications, because Elvis was not a stupid person. He was smart enough to know, okay, this was not good. I took too much this time, or I took too many combinations, and I've got to get back to
I
being
think he
me.
did get off everything during those 2 weeks. They were
Yeah,
able
so I
to.
think that was more that, I believe, than losing weight. It was more. It was a double, two things
He
at once that he
lost
could accomplish.
10, maybe 15 pounds, but his physique was phenomenal there. I mean, he didn't need to go through that 2 weeks of torture I mean, he looked fabulous.
The problem with people that have some depressive tendencies, and Elvis had some depressive tendencies
Yeah,
at
a
times,
lot.
and being awake at nighttime and
Yes.
asleep during the day, not getting vitamin D. That's
Yeah.
something that's misunderstood, and it was not, and that's going to mess with you a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think that Elvis had too many years of that, plus too many years of uppers and downers to try to do what he had to do, and also the pain medications to control some of his pains that he had.
And
He
not
had,
socialized.
yeah, yeah. So I've never judged Elvis for doing what he
No.
did, because on a small scale, I could see that it would be necessary to have something to keep you going.
That's what I said with the chronic pain. They won't give you opiates at all. You cannot
No,
get a painkiller.
because they learned from Elvis and stuff back in those days, in a
And the drug
sense.
and then the junkies. So
Yeah.
I can't get anything. So I have to live in pain every day. But Elvis, I understand, to have to go out and do things like he had to do, and twice a night in Vegas, like
Yeah.
the pain must have been, and the glaucoma that hurt so badly, she'd have to put the hot
Yes.
water on his eyes,
And
and
all the lights, the flash bulbs
they
going in
can't
your
get
eyes
in
for,
front of his face with a flash bulb this big. And I was like, stop it.
yeah.
And he'd have to go off stage, they said, and take a needle and drain fluid out of his eyes
Yeah.
during the concerts. I mean, the pain, and I'm watching him, and sometimes his eyes were closed, and I'm like thinking, you poor baby, I know you're in so much pain. So he needed that. And then, of course, it stops working and you need to bump it up. So it
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
his
you
fault.
you build a tolerance up. You just do, and then you got to switch to a different medication too. And that's why there were so many subscriptions. Not just that, but I
And
mean,
it
I
was
really,
all his guys, they said.
yeah,
They were
yeah.
all taking his stuff.
I'm sure there's probably a lot of that too. So,
Yeah.
but regardless, I mean, it's one of those untenable situations that Dr. Nick, he got in too deep, and at that point in time, what does he do? He's trying to keep Elvis alive,
He was.
you
He
know,
was.
but at the same time, he's doing, we read that they would take some of the medications out of the pills and make placebos, and I don't know. The thing is, it's hard to know what to trust with Red and Sonny said and Dave Hebler. I
I
do,
don't believe those guys.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's in Linda's book where he went to that pharmacist's house.
Oh, he doctor gave him
No.
no.
That was his doctor. He actually went to a pharmacy, it was closed, went to the phone booth, looked up the man's street address, because back then the phone book had everything. He went with a couple of the guys, they knocked on the door, and the guy was like, Elvis Presley was at his door. He said, he sweet talked him into going to the bathroom, and he said he needed something. He was in so much pain, but they said he ended up just scooping everything out and filling his pockets.
Well, that's in Linda's book.
I think so.
That's an interesting story. I mean, I'll have to read her book, because that seems to be like
A dentist. He had a dentist really snowed too. He could get anything from his dentist, which is probably why he went to the dentist late that night, the last night.
Yeah, and I asked Billy Stanley, because the whole codeine, just the idea that Elvis was allergic to codeine.
Yeah.
But yet he had codeine 10 times the therapeutic amount in his system, And I think Billy said that when I was reading another book, Elvis always had a case with $10,000 in it, and he had all his medications. It was 10,000 cash and all his medications. And one of the medications that was listed was codeine. So why would he have codeine if he was allergic to it? And I don't know.
Benadryl. I think he always was on Benadryl.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sad that Elvis couldn't have had a healthy life from the time he was a young man, and been 65, 70, 80, 90 years old and be with us today. But maybe, like Sally Hodell wrote, destined to die young. I mean, I do believe that your
Gladys had to
DNA,
do all kinds of stuff so he could go to the bathroom when he was a little boy.
your DNA does predispose you to certain things. But sometimes, we can be our own worst enemies. We can take too much of this over and over and over and over again, and your body doesn't do its job anymore. So we're never going to truly know 100% the truth. Only God and Elvis knows all that stuff. That's what Billy Stanley always says. Only God and Elvis know. We
There's
can just
nothing
do
like
that.
stomach cramps, though, and to think about going out and performing with stomach cramps because of his intestinal issues.
Yeah, you could see he was in pain a lot of times.
Oh.
Yeah, and then at the same time, we only have some televised concerts. All those other concerts that he would have to go off stage for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and Kathy Westmoreland would sing or something like that. He had to get back in shape to go back out there because he was in pain, a shot of something or whatever it was.
Oh, I never saw those breaks.
Oh yeah, there's conversations about that he frequently in the last couple of years had to cancel shows, had to go on late, had to take a break in the middle of it and let his gospel group sing in the middle, and then come back on, cutting shows short, all that stuff. So Elvis, everybody around Elvis that was out with him knew that it was a dead man walking. The phrase that Elvis at any point in time might not be around anymore. And Larry Geller, same thing. He talks with sadness all the time in his voice about that. I'd love to have Larry on the channel. I'm gonna have to.
Oh, I know. Did you read that they made Priscilla burn the books?
Oh yeah.
Books?
Oh yeah.
What a witch. That was like the only thing that brought him happiness. And then the colonel telling him he was a hack and this and that, and quit giving him all this crazy religious stuff.
No, nobody liked Larry Geller or among the Memphis Mafia for the most part.
I did.
Well, yeah, I do too. But I think that Elvis wanted to go to a seminary, and he wanted to be a monk for a while, and that's not good for business. So you can imagine Colonel Parker going, man, we got to do something. We've got to do something, or Elvis is going to quit, and he's going to go become a spiritual guru somewhere. Because when we hear the stories of Elvis in L.A., who was the girl that was a friend of Elvis that was like a sister to him in L.A. in the 60s? What was her name? She tells stories about how all the girls would sit at Elvis's feet, and he would read out of the Bible, almost like a spiritual guru, like the Beatles.
Everyone, it seemed like.
Yeah, and so that was during that time period, and I think that nobody was comfortable with it.
Linda, Ginger, all their first dates were sitting on his bed with him reading the books.
Yeah, that's how he was. But Elvis got into the search of other stuff, and I think that they were just really concerned that Elvis was going to quit Hollywood. He was going to break his contracts. Colonel Parker wasn't going to have any money anymore. And, of course, Priscilla was not going to be able to marry into the cash cow.
Always.
So they got together. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so closing statement.
All right, I want you to order, or I'm going to order it to your house, those letters from Elvis, because I need to know your thoughts on those. And those aren't signed, those aren't from above. These are letters he wrote to his spiritual confidant. And then Brando said, I'm here to say for him. And he did not fight any of it. In the letters, she said that he wrote him, and Tom Jones was writing her too. So Tom Jones introduced him to her.
All right. I will look into that.
I think you will love it. And Derry will just have a ball if you tell him you read those, because he read them.
Okay. All right.
He said he would love, I remember him saying, I'd love for you to read those and discuss them, but I don't think so. They get really deep and messy.
And I probably won't read them on the channel, but for people to know that they're out there and there could be some truth to them. There could be truth to them, and there might not be. I mean, until I read it, I can't give opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've read it, and I know you've told me some details that I'm like, gosh, I hope that didn't happen.
I know.
That's my feeling. I hope that didn't happen. All right. So thank you. You are the very first subscriber.
I am so honored to have been your first guest, and on Elvis's birthday.
Yep. It is January 8th today. Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, the Life magazine. I love it.
Did you get it?
I think I might have this too. Let me see. Hold on. Is this? Hold on.
Oh, it's different.
This is from 19. Is that a new book that you got right there?
Yeah, my husband just brought me this one home. I sent you a text the other night saying, if you don't have this, you have to go get it. My husband never looks over at the magazines, and he was like, what the hell is that? I gotta get that for her.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's very similar. It's like,
yeah, they all are the same look.
this is like 1991
This is
or
The
something.
King
I
at
don't know.
90.
Huh.
So they're
Interesting.
online. They're on Amazon and stuff. So if you want one, 90 is pretty cool.
Now I want to find out what year this is. Anyways, this was in a collection I bought, but
Oh my God, look, it's the same back.
oh, it is. Wow. Okay, cool. Huh.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to show you. Look at my from way back, the green plastic. All my
Oh, yeah,
45s.
I've got one of those as well. It's a Get
You do?
Records, right? 45s. Yep, I've got one just like that.
That's where I kept my Elvis 45. Yep.
I think mine is blue. It's around it. All right. Well, you have
You
a good
are
evening.
awesome. I love you. You feel like a friend. It's always in my living room. I love your love for Elvis. It shines through so much. And I love your wife through you. And the fact that you rescue animals like we do, you're amazing. And thank you.
Thank you. You're amazing as well. So I'm gonna hit the stop.
I had so much fun.
Same here.
I hope I talk to you again.